Okay, here we go. Welcome back to the David Amber Show. And we decided to take a trip with everybody today. Tell you what it's like when somebody with diabetes travels, kind of the unique needs that we have and the stuff we carry. Amber, when was your last trip? Where'd you go?
Yeesh. I mean, I moved to San Antonio. That's not technically a trip. So but still having to pack all my shit was a big deal. But I will say something that you mentioned earlier about Paris. So I went to Paris, France for the millennium.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I had a girlfriend that lived there. She was a nanny for the US ambassador. I had a crazy time. Point being, I don't remember what I packed gear-wise. I was there for 5 weeks. Like, I don't even remember if I took a tester. I mean, granted, that was 21 years ago. I would hope to. Anywho, diabetes gear, I really don't remember. So international, I went to Australia for 5 weeks. I really don't remember.
It's funny that you say that because I know somebody who went, type 1, a good friend of mine. He went to, I think it was, trying to remember if I get all the countries right. He went to Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and something else, which is a long flight. I mean, a majorly long flight because he left from Chicago. And I believe, now I'm not sure about this, and somebody's probably going to, call us up and say he's true. I believe the flight to Singapore is 18 hours. I'm not sure.
Right.
And it was a nonstop flight. And, he was saying that, because of all the time changes.
Oh, yeah.
Think about that. You literally, I believe he said when he came home, because of the time changes, he picked up a day.
Right.
And going there, he lost a day. But it is, when you think about that, if you are like an insulin user, let's say you're going to be away for an extended period of time, you got to make sure that that you have insulin with you, obviously enough insulin. And B, I think the backup plan is what happens if you're in a foreign country and your insulin vial breaks?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Where do you go? What do you do? I believe I don't know if when you went, but I think people do this. I don't know if they still do or not, but I think you could buy insurance for that.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think they sell something like, even though that, let's say you're covered by whatever you're covered here in America, I think you could buy international coverage when you're away, something like that. I don't know. So, but that's an interesting thing to bring up though, because for anybody who's a patient with diabetes, and I don't care if you're on insulin or not, think if your bags are lost.
Yeah.
Where are my pen needles? Where are my pens? Where's my syringes? Where's my stuff?
Well, and that's one of the things that I really wanted to bring up in this episode in particular, because I remember when I first got on the CGM, I was flying a lot to do speaker events, whatever. And I thought, holy shit, I've got to get the pat down. I can't go through the scanner. I take that very seriously. I didn't want to mess up my gear. And I will say that for people not living with diabetes, everything that we carry, our carry-on is serious. And I've had heated discussions with airline staff. I was like, listen, I have to have this stuff with me, buy me, blah, 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 blah. And you kind of can be a jerk about it. And I will say that I know there's other things, and I don't know, Dave, especially since you travel a lot, you can get some type of certification or whatever so that you bypass the bunch of stuff because you have a disability and it's proven that you have a disability. You don't have to prove it every time that you're there.
First of all, I do travel a lot, and I am a TSA.
That's it.
They clear you. You don't have to stand in line with everybody. I will say this: all the airlines, or TSA or whoever, the security people, and the airlines too, since they've instituted, some of the newer screening techniques.
Yeah. Thank
God, a combination of patient advocates and industry kind of tried to educate them as to, I very rarely, when I go through what I call the normal screening, not one of the ones where you hold your hands up, whatever.
Yeah.
Very rarely do I beep. Okay. It is rare. And I wear the Omnipod, and I also wear the G6 sensor.
Yeah.
However, there are times when you will undergo a random, you're randomized and you have to go through the X-ray.
Oh yeah.
Chain, and they will. And you're right. I think for a woman, for me, I could care less if they pat me down. And yes, I have found most of the TSA agents, at least recently, they're very understanding. You basically say, hey, I'm a type 1 diabetic. That's my insulin pump. That's my glucose sensor. And you realize they are doing their job because they'll put that stuff on your hands to see if you're going to explode or not. And I wish I would explode. It'd be kind of cool, but it is something that I think I've talked to other patients with diabetes who either wear a sensor or some of them wear what I call a conventional tube pump, and they are sensitive. And again, I'm not trying to be gender specific here, but I seem to find I don't think any woman likes to be patted down, and I believe the rules are that a woman has to pat down a woman.
That's true. And I have a funny joke to tell you really quick. So when I get my pat downs and they're like, okay, we're going to do a brisk blah, blah, blah underneath your breast and here. And I was like, you know what? That's more action than I've had in a long time. So about it. I'm kidding, but you have to make a joke of it, right?
Well, and you are right too, when it comes to like, even with TSA, you still have to run your carry-on through it is very interesting because I follow so many diabetic groups on Facebook, the questions you get about will that impact your devices? Now, and I can have the industry clarify this, but it's my knowledge that that's such a low dose of whatever radio waves or whatever the hell they use that first of all, it will not impact it should, let's put it this way, it should not impact the performance. It's not like an MRI.
Right.
If you're going to get an MRI, you got to take off all your shit, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
But airport technology, especially, it's not a high, I forgot the term that they use, but it's not a high grade of that. I think the biggest problem we have is when you get somebody who doesn't understand what all that stuff is. Yeah. And they are doing their job. Listen, we know why they're doing their job. We may not like why they're doing their job. And because I think, I'm also trying to think, I don't know how much liquid an insulin vial is considered. Oh, so if you have, I've never had a problem with that. Yeah, me neither. So it's got to be below the whatever. But was it 3 ounces? I don't know. It's got to be because your conditioner or your whatever. We're digressing. We're digressing from diabetes. So, but yes, when you travel, but not really though. When you think about it, when we travel, these are all things we're thinking about. Okay, what do we? And the other thing, and I don't know about you, like I'm about to go on a trip. And I know, let's say I'll be gone over 3 days. So that for what that means for me is I have to change my pod, my insulin delivery system. So, which means I have to bring insulin with me. Where do I pack it? And since I'm only doing a carry-on, and I'm very nuts about this is probably my one pet peeve. I got to make sure it's wrapped in something. So obviously the vial, which is made out of glass, doesn't break. Now, I will have more control over this than giving it to some baggage handler. I don't know about you, but when I travel, even if it's for, let's say it was for where I'm checking a bag, in my carry-on, if I need an insulin, that's where my insulin would be. All of my diabetes supplies, every single bit of them are on my carry-on. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't let them out of my sight. Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, quite honestly, feel that way because God forbid if they lose your bag. Yeah. At least you have your stuff. Well, and I think lessons are hard learned for some of us when it comes to that kind of stuff because bags do get lost. And I'm saying to the people listening who don't have diabetes, we have a separate checklist of things to pack in addition to our clean underwear and your contact solution. Right. And so just know that there are a lot of other factors going on. And I'm going to say OCD, like I lay everything out, I make sure, whatever, because especially if you're going to another country, like you touched on, if something were to happen to some of your devices and your SOL, it is very difficult. It can be very difficult. You bring up a great point because I don't want to say I'm OCD about it, but I like my stuff that I have to have. And it's not just like insulin or extra pods or stuff like that. It's even the charger, making sure. Oh, yeah. Because with the Omnipod, there's a separate device called the PDM, needs to be charged. Okay. Well, unfortunately, or whatever, it's not the same kind of charging technology as my Apple phone. Right. So I have to make sure that I have all of your chargers. I have all of the right charge. And as you mentioned, if I'm traveling internationally, another thing I make sure is in my carry-on is all the conversion technology because because their plugs are different than ours.
Yeah.
So it really, I mean, I know these are like nutty things to think about, but you're right. When you're a patient with diabetes, and I don't care what kind of diabetes you have, your meds, let's say you're not on a CGM, but you want to make sure you have your
Test strips,
your lancing device, all that. And, these are things that, like, okay, if we're going, let's say, on a long road trip, okay, I live in San Diego now, you live in Oklahoma, Norman, Oklahoma. If you were traveling to me or I was traveling with you in a car and something went wrong, we could stop at a Walgreens, a CVS, and get.
If there's a prescription on file, you got to make sure all your shit's updated. So that's not like it's like, oh, I can just cruise through Walgreens and get whatever. Keep going.
But you know what I'm saying now? It's like, and I would say that 90% of us have apps. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I have, even though my scripts are fulfilled through a mail order service, I still have access to them. And so, but I guess what I'm saying is that, a long road trip here, in the United States, I mean, and I'm not trying to say that Walgreens and CVS, I mean, you can go to Walmart, they have a pharmacy there.
Yeah.
Almost every grocery store has a pharmacy. So it's not like you're left, quote unquote, out in the cold when you're on a long road trip. It's a little bit different when you're traveling on an airplane, and it's a lot different when you're traveling internationally.
Hell yeah.
But you are, you bring up an interesting point, because let's say you are going on a long road trip. Okay. Well, then you got to start thinking about, if you are like an insulin user, okay, where do I store my insulin? If it's a summertime road trip, I know people, I didn't do this personally, but I know people who bring a cooler with them, and they make sure that, their insulin is in the cooler.
Now, if I'm on a road trip where I'm driving my Subaru through the country, then yeah, I would put a cooler, because I want to pack snacks and stuff just so I don't eat shitty food along the highway. So I get that. International travel, that's different, but there are a lot of brands that are now coming out that they have mini cooling kits or keep your insulin warm enough.
I meant to ask you that, because you bring up a really interesting point, because it's not just the drugs and devices, it's snacks.
Yeah.
Like when you flew like internationally, what did you make sure you had to eat? Because you're not going to get service all the time.
Right. Well, because I have a chosen restricted diet, I pack things like nuts and bars. I like for low blood sugar snacks, because they're easy to pack and they're light, what are they called? I don't know the brand, but they're basically like gummy rolls. Uh-huh. Gummy is not the word, but that's like a fruit roll.
Yeah.
Something simple. I know it's got, 12 to 15 grams of carbs. It's going to be easy, and I can throw it in my whatever bag. I get really serious about, like, if I'm going to catch a flight in the morning and I have to sit at the airport when I would normally be eating, I pack a breakfast. So I will do like a breakfast burrito or something. So I get really serious about stuff like this.
But a lot of people do. I mean, they get, and when you think about it, it adds to that. I think, again, everybody's a different kind of traveler. I do it so often, I kind of take stuff for granted. But there are people who I call, quote unquote, anxious travelers. And, but when you have diabetes, and then again, I don't care what kind of diabetes you have, there's other stuff you just have to think about, whether you like that or not. And, And let's say you're traveling, and I don't know about you, but I've traveled with companions who don't have diabetes, yet become, because they carry a purse, they become my holder, They got all my stuff,
Let me say, as somebody living with diabetes and who used to do the Diabetes Daily Grind with Ryan, my friend Ryan, there were times whenever we'd go into social settings or whatever, and he'd be like, hey, can you put my gear in your purse? I'm like, dude, I already got my own shit. Like, you're weighting me down. So as a loved one, if somebody asks you to put their stuff in your purse or whatever, just be kind and throw the shit in the bag.
Yeah, exactly. It's, but it is, and again, and I don't know about you when you travel, I know that when I travel, I mean, my hypo protection, if I'm going to go low, is I chew on those tablets.
Oh yeah. Tablets.
And I have the big jar of them that I carry with me. And then I also have the little, like,
the 10-pack.
Yeah. I carry in my, I would say my briefcase, but now it's a backpack because nobody carries a briefcase anymore. But it is, I think the takeaway here is, like everything else, is, a normal person, when they go on any trip, whether it's a short trip, long trip, international, domestic, they pack clothes, underwear, shaving, toothbrushes, all that stuff. And that, they don't have to worry about anything. And, yes.
And all things that you could buy easily if you forget it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. No, great point. No, that's right. If I had this bad habit every time I travel, I'd forget to pack a toothbrush. I must have a collection of toothbrushes now. But you're right. Yes, it's all things that are easily replaced. I mean, you don't need a prescription for it. You go to any five and dime, any Walmart, whatever, and you can go get. For us, some of the stuff, yes, it's easy to replace, but some stuff isn't. And that the other thing we don't know is how many hoops we're going to have to do to get there. Like you had mentioned, let's say you walk in. Now, again, I don't know what the new law is, but I believe if you are on insulin, they have to give it to you.
They have to give it to you. I think it's a 30 or 90-day supply. I can't recall.
I think it's a 30-day supply. And I think now that cost is now capped as well.
That's Kevin's law is what it is.
Yeah. I think so. So when I look at that, but you're absolutely right, because things, even if we, let's say, found a Walgreens or a CVS, whatever, doesn't mean that it's going to be open, B, that it's going to have what we want, C, that they can easily give it to us. So yes, we have, in addition to all the other stuff we have to bring, we have all this other stuff that we have to make sure that is with us. And you're right. I mean, I've done this so many times. I have like a mental checklist.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but the thing I think about first now when I travel out and make sure I have a mask with me is, oh my God, do I have all my diabetes stuff? That's the first thing I always check. Do I have all that? And then everything after that, I can care less about.
Which is good. And I want to say too, whether like we touched on, whether it's a long road trip or and we said this in a couple of the podcasts previously, is an impromptu situation. Sometimes, even though we want to be spontaneous, can be difficult. So let's just say your partner, you're somebody dating someone new, and they want to say, they come and say, hey, I booked a lake trip. We're leaving in 30 minutes. Well, that's great. And I appreciate your go-getter attitude, but it's going to take me 2 hours to get all my shit together. So to be patient.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I agree. I mean, it's not as much as we'd like to be able to just pick up and go.
It's not that simple.
It's not always easy for us to do that, but that's great. So I guess the lesson learned here, like for everybody else who doesn't have diabetes and is, working with somebody who does, is, hey, if there's one rule, be patient and be understanding, because we got a lot of stuff we got to worry about.
I completely agree.